Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well, or welcome to the channel if you're new. Let's get into this. Be sure to check out the Men of the West. Go and subscribe to them. I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to me as well. Only if you enjoy the content. You don't have to, of course. Let's get into this. The Wizards of Middle-earth. You're the wizard, Harry. Sorry, wrong show. I'm excited. I guarantee you there's so much I don't know. I don't even know who him, or him is. And especially, who's this little lad? Aw.
Joyston here, bringing you a video on the benefactors of great knowledge, wisdom, and lore. Let's delve right into it.
Let's go.
The Astari, or Wizards of Middle-earth, were select and elite few Maiar, who ended up contributing to the events of the Third Age. Sometime before the year 1000 of the Third Age, Manwë, the king of the Valar and Wind, sensed the growing threat of Sauron, Melkor's servant in the land of Middle-earth, to contribute aid to the Free Peoples and remind them of their creators. Manwë called a council where he could decide upon emissaries of the Valar to send to Middle-earth.
Cool.
Aule, the Vala of Smithing and the Earth, who created the dwarves, sent Kurumo to this council. Arume, the Vala of the Hunt and Lord of the Forests, sent Marinatar. These two were the only ones to originally come to this meeting. Manwë desired to find Olorin, and sent him as well. After returning from an adventure, Manwë asked Olorin to come to the council and to
I love that I've just put a young picture of Ian McKellen with red hair.
be one of the emissaries. Olorin said that he was afraid of Sauron, and that he was not powerful enough to stand against him. But Manwë said that is all the more reason to go, to find his courage and help the Free Peoples stand against what he fears, Sauron. Yavanna, the Lady of the Earth.
Now, Manwë is Melkor's bro, right? I wonder who sends Saruman.
Asked Kurumo to take Iwendil, so that one of the emissaries would protect the land, creatures, and nature. And lastly, Marinatar took his friend Ramustamo, another servant of Arume. Thus, the five who all came from different places and esteems in Valinor became the Order of the Five Wizards. They were forbidden to dominate or control the Free Peoples, or to match Sauron's power with power.
Okay, his name was Kurumo. One sec. Let me rewind this.
Come to this meeting. Manwë desired to find Olorin, and sent him as well.
Which one was
Manwë called a
Kurume?
council. Aule, the Vala of Smithing and the Earth, who created the dwarves, sent Kurumo to this council.
Oh, okay. So it was the Smith guy. Okay.
Marinatar took his friend Ramustamo, another servant of Arume. Thus, the five who all came from different places and esteems in Valinor became the Order of the Five Wizards. They were forbidden to dominate or control the Free Peoples, or to match Sauron's power with power. If they disobeyed these rules, they would be banished from the Order and
That's
cast from
so
the
good, that art.
Thus, around the year 1000 of the Third Age, the five landed in Middle-earth. Kurumo, who stood for Aule the Smith,
True.
became known as Saruman the White, and the head of the Five Wizards. Olorin, who represented Manwë and Varda, the Lady of the Stars, or Elbereth, as she is also named, and had also served under the Valar, Iarmo, the Lord of Dreams, and Nienna, the Lady of Mercy, became known as the Grey Pilgrim, Mithrandir, the White Rider, and widely known as Gandalf the Grey, and the second in power of the wizards, as Varda had convinced Manwë not to send him as the third in power behind Marinatar, but second in power behind Kurumo. Iwendil, who stood for Yavanna, became known as Radagast the Brown. And finally, Marinatar and his friend Ramustamo, who stood for Arume, became known as Alatar and Polando, the Ithrin Luin, or the Blue Wizards.
Okay.
Saruman, Gandalf, Radagast, Alatar, and Polando all arrived in the Grey Havens, and from there set out on their missions to help the Free Peoples.
That Radagast sounds
They
like a
took the
Pokemon.
guises of old men in Middle-earth to appear less frightening and more trustworthy and willing to advise rather than to overpower and dominate. Now, the power of the Astari is more within their voice, advice, and wisdom, rather than in spells or conjuring different matter. Now, they still do have power in that regard, and they can summon the elements to a certain degree, but that's not where their main power lies. The White Wizard and the Blue Wizards first went east to stir rebellions against Sauron. Now, there's some new lore, if you consider how old the Legendarium is. As in the Peoples of Middle-earth book, it seems that during the Second Age, the two Blue Wizards also went east then as well, before the arrival of the Five Wizards, of course. And during the Second Age, they caused great disarray in the factions of the east then as well, before returning west to Valinor to then come back once again in the Third Age to Middle-earth, making them appear as wizards in Middle-earth twice. When this happened in the Second Age, it coincided with Glorfindel's appearance in Middle-earth around the year 1600 of the Second Age, about the time when the One Ring was forged, making them shipmates with the elf. Anyways, in the Third Age, Saruman, LOTR, and Polando went east and south to cause uprisings against Sauron and to stop him at the root, at the cause. So if he ever returned to Mordor, the men of the east and south would stand against him. But we see this didn't really work because they still stood with him, especially around the time of the Battle of the Pelennor Fields.
Such a good battle.
Still, we aren't exactly sure how much good they did for Middle-earth. Only Saruman returned from these adventures, and it is possible that the Blue Wizards came to betray their own purpose and teach the Easterlings and Haradrim different powers in the cults of magic, and joined with them and the Dark Lord in positions of power. Or that they stood against them, and the War of the Ring was won by the Free Peoples because of the Blue Wizards and their unknown deeds. Or the two Blue Wizards were simply defeated. Of their ends, we know nothing. Once again, that is a part of the frame narrative. Not everything is revealed to us. People theorize that one of them could be the mouth of Sauron, which is unlikely as the messenger was a Black Númenórean. Or one was the king of the Easterlings during the battle for Erebor in the north, at the end of the War of the Ring.
Damn.
Or that they befell some other end. Again, it is truly unknown. Now, getting back to our remaining wizards.
Oh, that's so unfortunate, man. I thought I was gonna learn about some badass way they done something or something.
Radagast took less and less interest in the politics and needs of the Free Peoples, and he became more concerned with the nature and the animals of Middle-earth. He remained a part of the White Council, but lived in Mirkwood, keeping watch over the animals there, and meeting with Beorn and his son Grimbeorn from time to time. As for Saruman, he quickly became jealous of Gandalf after Círdan the Shipwright remarked that he believed Gandalf to be the wisest and greatest of all the wizards. And Saruman later discovered that Gandalf had been given Narya, the Ring of Fire from Círdan. This made his jealousy grow, and perhaps he thought Gandalf would try to become the head of the Order of the Wizards. After 1,500 years, Saruman returned from his adventure with LOTR and Polando in the east, when Sauron's power began to grow and become more noticeable in Dol Guldur. After sensing Sauron's returning power, Saruman began to desire a similar power, but he wasn't fully turned towards lust and power yet. The White Council was formed around the year 2463 of the Third Age to counter the growing darkness. And despite Galadriel wanting Gandalf to be the head of the council, Saruman was appointed its leader, and he refused to step down. This was also the same year that Smeagol had found the One Ring. After the White Council was formed, Gandalf had begun taking an interest in the hobbits of the Shire, and Saruman began to spy on Gandalf, afraid that he sought more power, and Saruman smoked pipeweed of the hobbits in imitation of Gandalf. He also spied on Gandalf while he was in the Shire, but eventually the hobbits started to notice Saruman as well, so eventually Saruman sent spies into the Shire to watch Gandalf.
Wow, I didn't know none of that.
In the year 2759 of the Third Age, Saruman became steward of Isengard, with Beren the steward of Gondor's permission, as it had been abandoned by the men of Gondor long before.
I love Lord of the Rings Online. Did you see that? Let me know if one day I need to play Lord of the Rings Online. I'll do it soon. And I don't know if you can do this on Lord of the Rings Online. Let me know. Everyone will start level 1. We'll all start like a guild or something. And it could be a whale of a time. And we can all just go explore Middle-earth together. If that's something you guys want to do, then I'm so down. I'm so down. I've never really been into an MMO. The only MMO I've ever played is the Final Fantasy one. And I got into it and it just wasn't my thing, really. But let me know if that's something you guys would like to see. Who knows, right?
In Orthanc, Saruman coveted and hid the Palantir within. In 2850 of the Third Age, Gandalf investigated Dol Guldur and found that Sauron was the necromancer who had come back, and he urged the White Council to move against Sauron, but Saruman argued for the council not to act, and so they didn't. Gandalf at this point began to suspect Saruman's motives and his true allegiances. Finally, in 2941 of the Third Age, Gandalf convinced the White Council to act, and Saruman actually agreed, fearing how much Sauron actually knew about the whereabouts of the ring, as Saruman had already begun studying into the dark arts of his enemy. and he feared that Sauron might actually be able to find the ring.
Elrond, what a badass.
Too heavily in power too quickly. So the White Council went to Dol Guldur and removed the Necromancer. 10 years later, Sauron completely removed himself from Dol Guldur and retreated to Mordor. His servants, who currently had possession of Minas Morgul, formerly known as Minas Ithil, gave the Palantir of the city to Barad-dûr, and thus Saruman and Sauron came in contact with one another after Barad-dûr was rebuilt. Saruman cast off the color white, greatest of the Order, and became Saruman of many colors, and he took Isengard for himself rather than holding it as a steward for Gondor, and he began to fortify it. And after many long years of studying Sauron's works before this, he desired a power alike to Sauron's, and the One Ring for himself. It's interesting. Before their time as Sauron and Saruman, both of these Maya actually studied under the same Vala. So this could result in why ultimately they both turned to looking into ringcraft and fighting for greed and power, as that Vala had also made the dwarves who were susceptible to greed and power as well. Just kind of interesting to think about.
That really
Saruman
is
eventually
great
set
point.
up a false alliance with Sauron and told Radagast to find Gandalf and hasten him to Isengard in the year 3000 of the Third Age. Now the rest we know, so I will quickly summarize it as it is a main part of the Lord of the Rings. Saruman tried to get Gandalf to join him, as though he was jealous of him to a certain degree. Gandalf was the only other wizard that Saruman really respected at this point, I believe. He never really respected Radagast, but he never said anything about that. After telling Gandalf of Sauron's return and the Nine Riders being abroad, Gandalf was unable to leave, but he did not join with Saruman either. Gandalf was imprisoned upon Orthanc before being rescued by Gwaihir a few days after Midsummer. The Nazgul came to and passed Isengard, and Saruman began breeding Uruk-hai and destroying the trees for his works. Later, when the Fellowship was trying to go through the Redhorn Pass, Saruman also began to conjure storms.
Such a badass.
And keep the snows heavy on the Fellowship so they couldn't pass over the Misty Mountains, but rather had to take a different route. I bet Saruman was hoping that they would go through the Gap of Rohan where he could easily capture them, as I bet he was trying to spy on them with his Palantir. But inevitably they went through Moria, and Gandalf was lost. Other than that, in the Fellowship of the Ring, it's only Saruman's Uruks that do anything. They kill
Well, I hope he's going to go into the other wizard.
Boromir and take Pippin and Merry, running back to Isengard. In the Two Towers, Saruman's Uruks were destroyed. The hobbits escaped, and the Ents would awaken and tear down Isengard. And thus Saruman's treachery and falsehoods would be revealed to Sauron after Sauron found out that Saruman had tried to capture the ring for himself. Sauron sent Nazgul to Isengard for confrontation after Grima Wormtongue threw the Palantir out of Orthanc, and the communication between Isengard and Mordor was brought to an end. After the Battle of Helm's Deep, Gandalf the White broke Saruman's staff and cast him from the order of both the wizards and from the White Council itself. After this, Saruman and Grima escaped Isengard through hidden means, and they went to the Shire and further industrialized it, as he had already begun to do so the year before. Eventually, Saruman was slain by his servant Wormtongue in the Shire, after being spared by Frodo, and after he mocked Grima. His throat was sliced by his own servant, while hobbit archers feathered Grima with arrows. Saruman's dark Fea came out of his body and looked west for one possible forgiveness and maybe a return home. But he was blown away by the wind of Valinor, and maybe even by Manwë himself.
I didn't know
Now
none of
last,
that.
But certainly not least, my favorite wizard of all time, Gandalf. I can't say much about him that isn't said in the books and made very apparent to most audiences. At the end of the day, he was the grandest of all wizards, and was the only one to actually accomplish his task set before him by the Valar, even though he started his journey afraid and meek. Upon his arrival in Middle-earth, Gandalf became good friends with the elves, and he learned much from them and also taught them much. Círdan the Shipwright gave him Narya in secret, and he had a great respect for the wizard. Gandalf journeyed through most of the lands of Middle-earth, and he learned many languages and spells. At some point during this time, he saved Gwaihir the Windlord from a poison arrow, and thus the two became good friends.
Oh.
When the hobbits moved and lived in the Shire, Gandalf befriended many of them. He loved the simplicity of the folk, and developed a love for fireworks and pipeweed. When the White Council was formed, in 2759 of the Third Age, Gandalf declined greater power or positions. That's not what he wanted, and that's not what he was intended for. In 2850 of the Third Age, Gandalf found Sauron's presence within Dol Guldur as the Necromancer, and he wanted the council to fight him to accomplish the task set before the Astari, though they wouldn't do it. And Gandalf wasn't powerful enough to do this alone, and he knew that. Besides, there were other quests to accomplish and other tasks at hand. In 2941, Gandalf advised Thorin Oakenshield to take back Erebor, and he advised Bilbo Baggins to go with him. In doing this, they prevented a deadly alliance that could have formed between Sauron and Smaug. The White Council invaded Dol Guldur and pushed Sauron back to Mordor. After Bilbo's 111th birthday in the year 3000 of the Third Age, Gandalf came to understand that Bilbo's magic ring was the One Ring, after doing research in Minas Tirith. Gandalf advised Frodo and Sam to go to Bree, and he left a letter at the Prancing Pony for them to go to Rivendell. Gandalf escaped Orthanc on Gwaihir the Windlord, and took Shadowfax from Edorast to ride to Rivendell after Theoden bid him take a horse and to be gone. Again, Gwaihir is starting to repay Gandalf for saving his life so long ago. The events in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, with Gwaihir the Windlord saving Gandalf or his friends, this is ultimately him also paying back Gandalf for saving him so long ago from that poison arrow. After joining the Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf killed a Balrog, and he was the first to do so in a few ages, but he died in the process. Olorin's spirit was sent back to Manwë and Iluvatar, and because he was the only wizard who was actually on the road to accomplish his task, the Valar sent Gandalf back until his task was complete.
Hell yeah.
He became Gandalf the White, and the head of the Order of the Wizards, and he was recloaked in Lothlorien, in all-white fabric, except for a few gray garments that he kept, so that he could shield himself from eyes both friendly and unfriendly. Gandalf found the three hunters in Fangorn at the turn of the tide, and alongside them, he advised many men of Rohan to take up arms against both Saruman and Sauron. He came back to Saruman and displayed his power over his former friend, and ultimately stripped him of almost all wizardly power except his voice, which was kind of innate for Saruman, but the wizardry definitely helped his voice have an enchantment over others. After this, he went with Pippin to Minas Tirith. During the siege of Minas Tirith, he almost had a great duel with the Witch King of Angmar in the gateway of the city, but he was saved at the last moment by the riders of Rohan. And before journeying back into the west, he served as the returning king's most trusted counselor before the last battle with Sauron. Gandalf followed Aragorn to the Black Gate. After this, he, Gwaihir, and a few other eagles saved Frodo and Sam from the fires of Mount Doom.
Legend, man.
And afterwards, Gandalf crowned Aragorn as King Elisar. For a few years, Gandalf spent time with the Moss Gatherer, or also known as Tom Bombadil. And in 3021 of the Third Age, Gandalf sailed into the west with Frodo, Bilbo, Galadriel, Celeborn, Elrond, and Shadowfax most likely. The boat also bore the 3 bare elven rings to Valinor. And if you want to hear more about that, I have a video you might like.
I need to watch that.
Below. Gandalf spent more than 2,000 years in Middle-earth, and he was welcomed back to Valinor as the only wizard of the 5 to have accomplished his task. Now, I've been thinking about this recently. I wonder when they got back to Valinor, if Gandalf, even alongside the 2 hobbits that he had known for so long, cast aside his appearance as an old wizard and took on the look of Olorin. Like him, but much younger and in immortal youth. I don't know, it's just something to think about. The wizards are a very intricate and powerful...
I wish we knew more about the nature wizard. Like, it's obviously bad that he didn't help, Gandalf and stuff, but it's so nice that he just loved his nature and was just like, yeah, screw everything else. I just love nature. I just love animals, love trees. I don't know. I wish we knew more about him.
Powerful part of the Legendarium. They set archetypes for the strong sage, mentor, and antagonist even, as each wizard is very diverse from the others. Even the blue wizards, who are similar, are still different from one another. The journeys of these 5 beings depict that it is best to live lives of simpler means, and rather than desire power or to rule others, become compassionate advisors to one another who give knowledge and wisdom, rather than to be a force of will upon someone else. You notice how many times I said advise when concerning Gandalf, because, in truth, that is most all he did. With the help of Narya, he gave hope, wisdom, and knowledge, even when all seemed lost. Thank you all for watching. I really hope this video was both entertaining and
That was so good. So good. I wish Chris Tolkien would fill out the travels of the Blue Wizards. He'd have to make up his own lore. Yeah. It's a tough thing to do, man. Saruman was trying to be cool like Gandalf. In conclusion, only one of the Astari was able to complete the mission. The leader turned against the Order, and others developed an obsession with small animals. Yeah, maybe Saruman murdered the Blue Wizards and never spoke of it again. Wow. Pretty much the only logical explanation. Yeah, he must have just destroyed them. I'm Saruman he should have been. That line gives me chills every time. Sorry, I get lost in all this stuff. You guys know this. I hope you enjoyed it though. Be sure to subscribe. Amazing video. Amazing video. Amazing video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for being you. Bye-bye. Okay, so let's get into this quick tutorial. It's so simple, and I'd greatly appreciate it if you guys could do this if you are with Amazon Prime. All you need is a Twitch account and your Amazon Prime account. So if you haven't got a Twitch account, it's as easy as making a YouTube one. Go make one, and then Bob's your uncle. Go to Prime Gaming. If you don't already have Amazon Prime, select Try Prime. You know, you can do that. Basically, all you got to do is connect your Twitch account. You'll see it here when you go on your Amazon Prime. Select confirm when you've got to link the accounts. And then that's it. Head on over to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/OmarioRpg. Click the purple subscribe. Click the purple subscribe button, and you should now see a pop-up window with a variety of subscription options. Choose subscribe for free. So like I said here, as you can see, you can subscribe for $5, but over here, it's for free with Amazon Prime. You may have thought I wasn't telling the truth or I was being sneaky trying to make money. I'm not like that. It's an absolute free Twitch Prime. You've got it. Make sure you use it. That's all I'm saying. It cancels after 30 days, so don't worry about that. It doesn't renew like paid Twitch subscriptions. So just remember at the end of the month to carry on doing it once a month. Obviously, you don't have to do all the beginning part. You just carry on doing this. I'd greatly appreciate it. I'll leave a link in the description on how to do it. Thank you so much. Like I said, if you've got Amazon Prime, please subscribe to my channel on Twitch. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's a great way of supporting me so I can get better microphones, better audio equipment, and better equipment all around. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.